John, where do you stand on your familiarity with morphine?
I'm for it. Um,
Aren't we all? Yeah, at some points. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another Friday episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy, it's John, and it is an episode dedicated to a song and an artist one of you all posited to us in a previous episode already released. So today it is going to be John who is going to go off and check out a suggestion that came from, well, it would appear a myriad of our listeners. Arthur Wolwill, 3837. Alive 28697 and Kevin M, and that's Kevin with two V's, all suggested on our Israel Sun episode by Silverchair that we check out Morphine and their track Thursday. Now, I have a peripheral knowledge of Morphine, but never really did the deep dive, and that's mostly because Morphine has influenced a good grip of bands that I consider myself a fan of. Though I guess if I was a real fan, I probably should have done a deeper dive into them than just being aware of their existence. But as luck would have it, it is going to be John who goes off and gives these guys a listen. John, where do you stand on your familiarity with morphine?
I'm for it. Um,
Aren't we all? Yeah, at some points.
no, I know of them.
Okay.
Have people told me to check them out, and it's on that long list of bands that I should have, could have, would have, but haven't. So I don't even know what they sound like. I just told that, according to someone, they are top banana,
Yeah. It's
which in our
very,
country means creditable.
yeah. That's right, assumed. Uh, so, Yeah, a very similar boat to me, although I think because I know that bands I listen to are influenced by them, I have a maybe an iota more clear picture of what they sound like. But this will be fun for both of us. So, as these three individuals suggested, why don't you go off and give this thing a spin, and then come back and let them and the rest of us know what you've made of Thursday by Morphine.
Well, then.
We used to meet every Thursday in the afternoon for a couple of beers and a game of pool. We used to go to a motel across the street. And the name of the motel was the Wagon Wheel.
This is fucking excellent. Yeah, so it starts off with this weird sort of noise in, bit of sort of static and fuzz, like it's retuning. Um, it turns out the whole atmosphere, and then in with this bass and drum, and the bass. My God, it's got this weird, like churning, rolling pattern to it. It almost feels like it's like just going over and over itself, twisting and tightening, like someone carrying a grudge. Sounds fabulous, really great. And there's some of the notes that will slide and drift away almost like it's on the teeter on the brink of a collapse, but it isn't. You kind of feel it's inevitable that it will just keep going forever. And the drums are really nice as well. They've got a bit of like physicality of sort of jazz. Um, just sounds great. And then in comes your man, and he's got that sort of laid back sort of delivery. sort of Philip Marlowe. Really sort of cool. And apparently he's meets up with this young lady and on a Thursday. Sure you remember that Thursday. Beer and pool, and then after they've sunk a couple, across to a motel called the Wagon Wheel. And the thing about the Wagon Wheel is everyone remembers it was bigger than it was. And it's almost like an old school like film noir, film from the 50s. At this point, he goes, oh, and the camera like almost moves away from whatever action is going on inside that motel room. But then we get this sort of insane saxophone making up for it. It's awesome. Let's just go back up. We touches the chill song, so we definitely do that.
We used to go to a motel across the street.
We like the repetition.
And the name of the motel was the Wagon Wheel.
Here, really low down the mix, it sounds like there's a guitar noodling away, doing some crazy shit, but it's really low in the mix. Let me just go back up. Not by far, it was just. Yeah.
One day she said, come on. She said, why don't you come back to my house? She said, my husband's out of town, you know he's gone to the end of the month. Well, I was...
Okay, I forgot to say this. So when he's singing that first verse, the bass takes a step back and then just interjects in between the lines, almost like a comment from a Greek chorus or something, And then this verse straight away, the sax is doing it, and it just sounds so mocking and sarcastic. And he's all like, she's saying, "Oh, why don't we go back to my place? The husband's not there." And the sax is like saying, "Oh, what could go wrong? You idiots." It's just brilliant. So cool.
One day she said, come on. She said, why don't you come back to my house? She said, my husband's out of town, you know he's gone to the end of the month. Well, I was just so nervous, I couldn't really quite relax. Cause I was never really quite sure when her husband was coming back. One of the neighbors that saw my car.
It was one of the neighbors. Two times. Yeah. That second sort of instrumental in between the verses was a bit more madness to it, and it kind of reminds me of this sort of, you get a sort of film noir type feel to it, and it's mixed in. There's a lot of sort of films I can feel, you get Double Indemnity and a sense of like Body Heat, even like sort of like bits of LA Confidential, sort of getting more and more a hot spot maybe. There's some others that are obvious, I'm sure. But then with this sort of saxophone madness, it's like I'm trying to describe what's going on between them musically and this sort of turmoil. And he said he's nervous, but he still didn't stay away, did he? So you have this sort of like cyclone that you get caught up in, and you can't seemingly get out of it. And that sort of wailing saxophone, it just reminds me of David Lynch, Lost Highway in particular. You're seeing things from a different filter, which is Lynch's vision. And some say it's madness, but I mean it's genius, I think. But it's just like different way of looking at it. And musically rather than through narration, you just get a feel of this sort of this passion that's burning between them brightly, but is obviously going to end badly. I mean, I've got to the end of the song, but it's got it, hasn't it?
Then they told the year they told her, they think they know who you are. Well, the husband, he's a violent man, a very violent and jealous man. Now I have to leave this town, I gotta leave, well I still can.
Sound of Carlo. That was a guitar, I'm sure it is.
We should have kept it every Thursday in the afternoon for a couple of beers and a game of pool. We should have kept it every Thursday in the afternoon for a couple of beers and a game of pool. She was pretty good too.
It was pretty cool too. But you know, my man's no fool, he's out. A perfect blend from the husband of very violent and jealous. Yeah. So the moral, kids, obviously, is don't get caught. Yeah, this is great. It says this, the narration. I think Andy will love this as well. Musically as well, it was really cool. Apart from those wailing bits I heard, it was just bass, drums, and sax, which is unusual and really cool. I had heard some mutterings about Morphine. It's one of those ones that bands that I didn't really know what they were, but I remember other people saying that they were something that I should check out, and it's in the list of um, many that I should but haven't, and I'm so glad I did. This didn't disappoint at all. This was awesome. I really enjoyed this. It had full of attitude and atmosphere. It was kind of cinematic, but also it was Chandler-esque in certain ways. Sort of jazzy and film noir-y and a little bit tawdry as well. Awesome. Yeah, really enjoyed this. This is an excellent show. Let's we need to find out more. I presume Cure for Pain is the album. Noted. Let's get back and chop it up with Andy.
I can tell by the glazed over look in your eye that you've had your bit of morphine. What did you make of it, John?
So the song starts with this sort of atmospheric retuning. It's almost like another approximation you get from other old songs where you get the radio dial sort of, it's very quick, but it's like a whiz of static and fuzz. Yeah. Or perhaps it's the DeLorean starting up. And then we get some drumstick taps and we're in. And we enter another world. This is the world of femme fatales with empty afternoons and ankle bracelets, and men with slick back hair, greasier than a highway cop's palm, have gotten all twisted up inside. This is Double Indemnity, Body Heat, and LA Confidential seen through David Lynch's eyes. Yeah. So first, the bass. Rolling and rocking. It has an old school feel with a touch of the crazies. And it kind of reminds me of Repo Man in a way. I don't know. This song was really cinematic, and I just started thinking of films as it was going along. The bass, it kind of churns over itself, twisting and tightening as it does so, self-harming, like a grudge or a heartache. The notes seem to sort of, some of them seem to just slide or drift like a bike on a doomed highway, or at least a lost one. The drums are seemingly more in control with this bustling, jazzy physicality. I really love the occasional like grasp or sometimes double grasp from the hi-hat. We've talked at length about that sound and how much pleasing it is.
Yeah.
Um, I could honestly just listen to these two instruments jamming for 10 minutes quite easily. But in comes the singer, um, and he has that tone of a sort of modern Philip Marlowe, so laid back. And he sets the scene, as all good narrators do. Surprisingly, the song doesn't get its title from a homage to D.I. Fred Thursday, who was played by the illustrious Roger Allam, who's Morse's mentor in the Endeavour TV series. Monday, it must be cheese and pickle. Fans of the series will know what I'm talking about. No, it's because our humble narrator used to meet with his paramour on a Thursday, in the PM. After sinking a couple of beers and shooting some pool, they would sojourn to the epitome of American sleaze, the motel, no tell motel. This one, the wagon wheel, no less. And as I've said, in this country, when people mention wagon wheels, everyone says they used to be a lot bigger. But anyway, that's a very different thing. As he sings this verse, the bass actually backs off and then shoots comments in between the lines, almost like a Greek chorus. There's a really lovely rhythm to his delivery. This cross between sort of jazz and early rock and roll. And we also so you get this sort of 50s film noir feel to it, but with bits of modern stuff tacked in. And the repetitions draw you in as well. It's really nicely done. The drumming sounds absolutely great. And there is this sonic little squeal from a as yet unknown perpetrator. As the singer ends the action with a ooh, we seemingly turn away from whatever would be going on inside that motel room. A bit like a film Campbell would do in a 50s film, just move away from the action towards the fireplace, usually, like they did in Naked Gun. And there's one when they're on the parachute. There's a fire goes with a parachute as well. But anyway, yeah, and then we go into step into a different setting. Saxophone-led turmoil and madness, and it brought about not particularly this first iteration, but later in the song, it brings about Lynch's Lost Highway, definitely. The sax in this part apes the bass line like a drunken uncle. Way back in the mix, I can hear some wailing instrument, but it's really, really way back. And I wonder if it was a soprano sax or maybe an electric guitar. I think it's so vague that it's just there to mess with your mind. So we get back to the story, second verse. And of course, as with any good thing, it's never enough. You have to screw it up. So our temptress suggests relocating back to her place. Husband is out of town. What could go wrong?
Of course.
Here, the sax takes over the bass with these mocking rasps in between lines. And it is like he's saying, what can go wrong? You goddamn idiot. The protagonist is nervous, but he's not so nervous that he totally says no and resists. Like the saying goes, he can't resist the taste of honey. The instrumental break after this verse is more intense and unhinged. It really is this swirling morass of confusion. Really atmospheric and really absorbing. I really enjoyed it. And then we get back to the next verse. So we hear that it's one of the neighbors. Yeah, one of the neighbors has spotted our narrator's car. And it should have sung Snitches Get Stitches, but it turns out that the husband is that winning blend of violence, or very violent, as he says, and jealousy. Sounds like a keeper.
Quite the 1-2 punch.
Our man takes the practical approach. grabs his balls and heads for the hills while he's still got them. Um, yeah, I mean, just leg it while I still can. Um, at the end of this, there's sort of sonic bits going on throughout this verse, and at the end you get this sliding effect. It sounds like a car fishtailing away from the scene. It's really funny. It's brilliant. So yeah, in this instrumental break after that verse, and definitely, I'm sure I hear some guitar noodling go away in the corner. Um, and then we get the final verse, which he just reflects on. Should have kept it to Thursdays. Um, so the moral of this story is don't get caught. Or if you've got a good thing, don't change it.
Yeah.
Um, he adds at the end, she was pretty cool too, as an epitaph. Before we get a, which I thought was hilarious, and then we get a final 30 seconds of swirling madness, and it really the sax honks out like crazy. A couple of double kicks with hi-hats, and then those initial effects in the beginning, sort of this buzz fuzz for the intro, takes us out. I thought this was absolutely wonderful on two fronts. I thought it was a great narrative. It took you in there, really clever writing. It was succinct, but the exposition was there. 3.5 minute theatre. I thought musically it was great as well. Um, and it was led really on the main by the bass,
Mm.
with us ably supported by the drums and their crazy cousin Cletus, otherwise known as the saxophone. Um,
The baritone
yeah,
goose.
it was so full of atmosphere. Um, I just thought it was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it. So, meant to listen to Morphine, hadn't. I was not disappointed.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll be interested to look into more from them after hearing this, as I was. Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of fun. That rock tumbler bass, the baritone goose that was that saxophone, the humor in the narrative that was unfolding before us. Yeah, it was all a lot of fun, and I even liked his sort of gruff kind of voice because it's perfect for telling this kind of lascivious story of bar hopping and having affairs across the street, and then you break from habit once, and like you said, look what happens. You know what I mean? Stick to the blueprint.
It could be like, Bukowski easily.
Yeah,
Really
yeah, yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Morphine was an American rock band formed in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The band used an idiosyncratic set of instruments and combined blues and jazz elements with more traditional rock arrangements, which gave it an unusual and original sound. The instruments mainly consisted of baritone saxophone, two-string bass, and drums. Vocalist Mark Sandman, sang distinctively in a deep, laid back croon, which was on display in this track, and his songwriting featured a prominent beat influence. The band themselves coined the label low rock to describe their music, which involved a minimalist, low end sound that could have easily become a gimmick. A power trio not built around the sound of an electric guitar. Instead, Morphine expanded its offbeat vocabulary on each album. The band enjoyed positive critical appraisal, but was also met with mixed results commercially. In the United States, the band was embraced and promoted by the indie rock community, including public and college radio station and MTV's 120 Minutes, which the band once guest hosted, but received little support from commercial rock radio and other music television programs. This limited their mainstream exposure and support in their home country, while internationally they enjoyed high profile success, especially in Belgium, Russia, Portugal, France, and Australia. Morphine was formed in 1989 by bassist and vocalist Mark Sandman. A member of the bluesy alternative rock band Treat Her Right, saxophonist Dana Colley, a former member of the local Boston group Three Colors, and drummer Jerome Dupree, who had played with Sandman in the band Hypnosonics. Sandman, a prolific musician who frequently experimented with homemade instruments, played a single-stringed bass guitar of his own devising with a slide, although he later added a second string. Really challenging himself there. Dupree briefly left the group for health reasons in 1991 and was temporarily replaced by Treat Her Right drummer Billy Conway. These years found the group building a strong local audience and touring occasionally. With Dupree returning, they recorded their debut album, Good, for the Boston based Accurate Stroke Distortion label in 1991. The album received positive reviews and increased the band's audience. The band subsequently signed to Rykodisc, who released Good under its own imprint. Cure for Pain, 1993's follow-up album, increased the band's audience outside of New England, and singles like Thursday and Buena picked up some college radio play. During the recording of Cure for Pain, Dupree was again replaced by Conway, although Dupree still played most of the percussion work on the album. After the album was completed, the band toured the United States, Europe, Japan, and Australia. In 1994, 5 songs from the album were prominently featured on the soundtrack of the film Spanking the Monkey. Speaking of their music lending itself to cinema, there's an example of it. The tracks Donna and Buena appear in the first season of The Sopranos. As of 1995, the album has sold 107,000 copies in the United States and over 300,000 copies worldwide. Writing for the Australian Broadcast Corporation, Kaz Tran wrote of the album, "On Cure for Pain, their strong blues and jazz inspirations, conjuring late nights, darkened silhouettes, walking abandoned streets with tracks like Donna and Miles Davis's Funeral, perfect as film noir cuts. On tracks like I'm Free Now, Candy, Let's Take a Trip Together, and the beautiful mandolin led In Spite of Me, you also get the sense of the ghost of Sandman's journeying spirit, a spirit that led him to travel widely, working in construction, commercial fishing, and for a time as a taxi driver, which left him with a nasty scar across his chest as a result of a violent mugging attempt. Man has lived a life." Adding, "In the 90s, there was no shortage of hot bassists flogging fat bass riffs, but one of the most underrated is Morphine's Mark Sandman. His unique style, sound, and songwriting has influenced the likes of Les Claypool, Mike Watt, Henry Rollins, and Josh Homme, to name a few. His deep bass grooves and low vocal register, teamed with the sax Collywood at times play two at the same time, meant that Morphine sounded as heavy as and full-bodied as any of the decade's biggest rock bands. Meanwhile, over at CoogRadio.com, contributor Mia De Los Reyes reviewed the album and wrote, "Cure for Pain provides the listener with a new window into the world of jazz while mixing the best features of alternative rock music. The album begins with a minute-long instrumental, mysterious melody of Collie saxophone, immediately following in Buena. The drums kick in, and Sandman's deep voice levels the song perfectly. The musical skill and lyricism itch the listener's brain in the best way. Each song tells a story of its own while sticking to the same theme, the endeavor of finding cure for pain. The album's lyricism ranges in harsh realities of drug addiction, heartache, suicide, or depression, but also touches the mystifying and alluring feeling of love." She continues, "In Spite of Me issues a mandolin to evoke a bittersweet yearning. Through the band's venture in exploring and combining different musical characteristics, the listener finds different ways to connect to this record. The last song, Miles Davis's Funeral, may be a reference to the famous jazz musician who passed 2 years prior to the album's release. Ending the same way it began, an instrumental piece closes the curtain on Cure for Pain and leaves the listener in a strange, bittersweet silence." So, these lyrics. "We used to meet every Thursday in the afternoon for a couple of beers and a game of pool. We used to go to a motel across the street. The name of the motel was a wagon wheel. Oh, one day she said, "Come on, come on." She said, "Why don't you come back to my house?" She said, "My husband's out of town. You know, he's still gone till the end of the month." Well, I was just so nervous, I couldn't really quite relax because I would never really quite sure when her husband was coming back. It turned out one of the neighbors that saw my car, and they told her, yeah, they think they know who you are. Well, her husband, he's a violent man and a jealous man. Now I have to leave this town. I gotta leave the town while I still can. We should have kept it every Thursday in the afternoon for a couple of beers and a game of pool. We should have kept it every Thursday in the afternoon for a couple of beers and a game of pool. She was pretty cool, too. Didn't sound like her husband was, though. At least not cool with what y'all were up to. Uh, the track is a jazz rock tale of adultery, paranoia, and a fleeting romance, detailing a secret affair that occurs while a woman's husband is out of town. I don't really think we needed these notes. It was pretty self explanatory. The song focuses on the tense, thrilling, and ultimately dangerous nature of these clandestine weekly meetings in the afternoon. The band returned to the studio in 1995 and produced Yes. The album featured the single Honey White, the music video for which appeared on the MTV animated series Beavis and Butthead, as had Thursday. It also included I Had My Chance, which was featured on the soundtrack for the film Get Shorty. Good film. After 2 years of touring, Morphine signed with DreamWorks Records, who released their major label debut Like Swimming in 1997. It was a critical success, but did not break the band into the domestic mainstream as had been hoped. DreamWorks released a music video for the single Early to Bed, directed by Jamie Colleary and released in March of 1997. The nightmarish yet humorous video became an instant favorite among fans and was later nominated for a Grammy Award. The band also released B-Sides and Otherwise, a collection of B-sides and live recordings, also on Rykodisc that same year. In the time following, Dupree once again began performing live and in the studio with the band, making the group a four-piece. The band's final studio album, The Night, was completed in early 1999. On July 3rd, 1999, Sandman collapsed on stage of the Nel Nome del Rock Festival at Giardini del Principe in Palestrina, Italy, outside of Rome. He was soon pronounced dead of a heart attack, and Morphine immediately disbanded. So yeah, he died on stage while performing. I mean, if you're an artist, that's kind of a hell of a way to go. I'm sure you wish you could have pushed it back a couple decades, but man, to go out performing live on stage is a hell of a way to go. Um, the
It
night was. Go ahead.
depends how well the gig was going.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I would assume at these festivals, though, everybody's enjoying it. But yeah, you're probably right. So yeah, the band, or pardon me, the night the album was released in 2000. Posthumous Morphine releases followed shortly thereafter, including Bootleg Detroit, an official live bootleg, and the Best of Morphine 1992 through 95, also both on Rykodisc. In 2009, Colley and Dupree began regularly performing Morphine songs and new material as members of Morphine, and alternately as the ever expanding Elastic Waistband, with singer, bassist, and guitarist Jeremy Lyons of New Orleans. In July of 2009, the group played at Nel Nome del Rock Festival in Palestrina, Italy, marking the 10-year anniversary of Sandman's death at the location in which it occurred. Pretty interesting to go back there 10 years later to the spot and perform again. I would almost be afraid of, tempting fate and playing with fire
Yeah.
there, but hey, more power to them. Uh, as of 2014, the group was renamed Vapors of Morphine and regularly perform in Boston and New Orleans. They held a standing weekly gig at Atwood's Tavern in Cambridge, Massachusetts until its closure after 16 years in March of 2023. And sadly, on December 19th, 2021, drummer Billy Conway died from liver cancer, age 65. So, there you have it. That is Morphine. Unfortunately, two members down at this point. So, I don't even think Vapors is probably doing anything anymore at this point, although who knows. I mean, it says that they continued on even after Conway's death. So, despite being down two members, I guess they still persisted. So, who knows? Maybe they are. Some of our Boston fans or the folks out there, and I think there might be some carryover in that with Kevin. I think he might be from New England. But let us know where they stand, if they're still doing their thing in and around the area or whatever. It'd be interesting to find out. But man, you could definitely listen to this. It's especially the Josh Homme thing. Like I can hear shades of Homme in this track specifically. But I thought it was interesting about the Claypole little snippet as well there. But yeah, this was a really great shout. Thanks all three of you, Alive, Arthur, and Kevin. Sorry for, truncating your proper usernames, but I think you know who I'm talking about. Thank you so much for shouting this one. That was a lot of fun. And John, obviously, it sounds like you feel the same about having given this a listen in your experience.
Yeah, really, really enjoyed this. I thought this was excellent. Yeah,
Yeah, this
great
is
shout.
great. I don't want to put any pressure on you, but I could totally see you and I meeting in like a month and a half and you being like, oh, yeah, this came in. And then you pull up this album on vinyl because you enjoyed listening to it so much.
What can I
Time will
say?
tell. Yeah. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought about Morphine. If there's other tracks by them off this album or some of their other stuff that we should check out, please feel free to shout them out down in the comments field below. Or if you have any other artist or act, a song by them you would like us to check out, feel free to also shout them in this comment field or any of our other comments field. We will add it to our ever-growing list devoted to tracking songs offered up by you for future Friday episodes, and we will eventually get to it, and so long as at least one of us is not familiar with whatever is offered up. Please also like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. Hopefully it's not too big of an ask. It only costs you a couple clicks, but it'll mean the world to us, so thanks in advance for anyone who entertains that request. And hopefully John and I will see all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. Have a great weekend, guys.